From the Rafters of Rupp is brought to you by Bud's Gun Shop, Don Franklin's Auto Mall, Double Dogs, Friends of Coal, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Kentucky Farm Bureau.
The multiple championship banners and the 42 jerseys permanently hanging from the Rafters in Rupp Arena are there to honor the remarkable history of the University of Kentucky's storied basketball program. Hello everybody, I'm Kyle Macy, and welcome to this year's final episode of Season 4 of From the Rafters of Rupp. Throughout this series, we continue to highlight the select group of individuals who have all enjoyed legendary careers wearing the Kentucky blue and white. I've been getting asked quite often lately, when are you going to do an episode on you? Well, it does seem a little awkward to be on both sides of the interview session, but my jersey is up there, so here we go.
Macy breaks into the circle, pumps, goes up from 15, good.
I was born April 9th, 1957, in Kendallville, Indiana. We actually lived just outside of Kendallville in Albion, but Albion was so small, it didn't have a hospital. I was the youngest of 3 children, born to Bob and Evelyn Macy. I certainly learned a lot from my brother Kevin and my sister Terry. My sister was 6 years older, my brother 4. My brother probably developed my toughness because he was always beating me up or being rough on me, and my sister was the one that helped me survive. So she kind of looked out for me. But no, I remember we were young, and that's one thing, even though my father was a high school coach at the time, we never lacked for anything. It wasn't like we were rich, but we didn't know any different. And my parents were very involved with the kids. We'd backyard wiffle ball games, take us, to a gym and shoot around or those type of things. When I turned 3, our family moved to Fort Wayne. My father took a college coaching job at Indiana Institute of Technology. That's where I really began to fall in love with the game of basketball. But also, too, anytime I wanted to go to the gym, and I was kind of a gym rat, that it was amazing as I look back later, as I got older, and even when I was coaching, that anytime I asked to go to the gym or go shoot or go work out, he always said yes. I mean, because I'm sure there was days he'd had a long day at work, practice, had gone out scouting or recruiting and come home late, and here I am bouncing around wanting to go to the gym. He'd pitch baseball batting practice with the rubberized balls. We'd play tennis on the wood floor. And so it was just a great childhood. Fort Wayne was, and still is, a great sports town. While growing up there, I played with a lot of great players in many different sports. I was involved in baseball, cross country, tennis, and of course basketball. I just loved to play, but really all sports. I loved to compete, and it was always a challenge. I wanted to be better than my brother. I remember the first time I beat him in tennis, and I think that's the last time he played tennis. And I was kind of shy as a little kid, didn't really talk much, but that was kind of my release, my outlet, just playing sports and being involved and making friends through that. Before my sophomore year in high school, our family moved to Peru, Indiana. My father had always wanted to coach me, and the opportunity opened up at Peru High School. Peru was actually where my grandparents lived. I'll admit, being the new kid in town was a little scary at first. And it's funny, the first few days, I'd ride my bike. Once we moved in, I'd ride my bike over to the park for the pickup games in the evening. And I didn't know anybody. And, to hear stories about, hey, did you hear about the coach's son coming to town? And, some of them thought I was 6'7" or whatever. And I was like, oh, man. But my first game, I think I had 27 points, 9 rebounds, and some assists. So I think the fans realized then I was playing because I could play, not because I was the coach's son. So that kind of took all that pressure off. My high school career in Indiana was great. We won our sectional tournament in both my sophomore and senior seasons. And although my father and I didn't reach our goal of playing in a state championship game, we did play in front of a packed house every night and built lasting relationships. My high school career also prepared me for the next step in my basketball career. Don't go away. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Hunt Brothers Pizza has been proudly serving communities across America for over 25 years. Download the Hunt Brothers Pizza app to find one of our 7,500 locations inside a convenience store near you.
Are you a sporting shooter, hunter, or looking for the best concealed carry option? Bud's Gun Shop and Range is Kentucky's largest selection of firearms, ammunition, and firearm accessories, located on Industry Road in Lexington.
After my senior year at Peru, I was fortunate to receive a number of awards: All-State, Parade All-American, named a McDonald's All-American, but perhaps the most meaningful award to me was being named Indiana's Mr. Basketball. To be associated, to be chosen as Mr. Basketball, it's a great honor. I mean, it's something you're very proud of. But I also realized that I didn't do it myself. I mean, I had some great teammates that were giving the ball up. Just all things kind of came together, and was real fortunate, but very honored to receive that award. My father handled everything when it came to the recruiting process until I reached the end of my senior year. I just concentrated on playing basketball. But when my senior year came to an end, I was faced with making a decision on choosing a school that was right for me. I did make some visits, and basically it was Cincinnati, who was a very good team at that time. UCLA, John Wooden had just retired my senior year in '75 when they beat Kentucky. So they were going to have a new coach, Gene Bartow. I made a visit there. Probably knew I wasn't going to go there because it was pretty far away from Peru. And again, Peru was a small town, and I hadn't traveled much, and Kentucky even seemed like a long way away at that time. So it basically came down to Kentucky, which I'd visited, and Purdue. So Coach Hall finally came to me and said, "Hey, we want to sign one more guard, and we would like to sign you, but if you're not ready, we've got another guard that will sign, and we're going to do that, but we need to know." And I may have been feeling some pressure to stay close to home, and Purdue has a good basketball tradition as well. So I said, "Well, Coach, I'm still not 100% sure." And so they went ahead and signed Truman Claytor. Purdue University was close to home, and I initially liked the role Coach Fred Schaus envisioned for my future there. Yeah, Fred Schaus had coached with the Lakers, been maybe a general manager, been involved in pro basketball. And the one thing he did tell me was that as a freshman, I would get an opportunity to play, which was very important to me. That's one of the reasons I said I didn't want to go to Indiana, because I wanted to play before I was a junior. And so the season starts, and the first 3 or 4 games, I'm not getting a sniff of time. I'm maybe a minute or two here and there. So it didn't start off real well. Bruce Parkinson, whose father played here at Kentucky, broke his wrist. So he was out for the season. So because of that injury, now I moved into the starting lineup. And the first game against West Virginia, Bob Huggins was a player for West Virginia on the road. And I think I had 21 points or something like that my first game. My first Big Ten game, I had 38. So, things were going well. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of stopped. There was no real team play, and it was just a mess. And in college, I'm a firm believer you need to have some good discipline. And that just wasn't happening, and I didn't see it changing. I transferred to Kentucky before the 76-77 season and had to sit out a year under NCAA guidelines before being eligible the next fall. Yeah, the year I sat out was one of the toughest years probably, definitely in basketball, to not be able to play. Now, fortunately, I could practice with the team, and so that gave me some outlet, and it was a great learning experience because I was playing every day in practice against Larry Johnson, who was a little bit bigger than me height-wise, a lot stronger than me physically, faster than me, and just a real tough guard. And so I got to go against him every day, which is great practice. So while it was a tough year, not being able to play and sitting there on the bench watching games and at times feeling like, oh man, I could help by doing this or that, to not being able to. When that team lost in the East Regional of North Carolina, it was kind of bittersweet in the fact that I was sad that the team lost and, sad for them, but at the same time I'm eligible. With the experience of seniors Rick Roby, Jack Givens, James Lee, and Mike Phillips returning for the 77-78 season, our Kentucky team had one thing and one thing only on our mind. But this team was unique in the fact that they had the 4 seniors that had just about accomplished everything except winning a national championship. And I think that was really our motivation from those seniors to make sure we stayed focused on achieving the ultimate goal. So everybody knew what the goal was of that season. It wasn't to get to the East Regional Finals or the Mid-East or whatever. It was to win the championship.
Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. Big on commitment.
We never set out to be the largest auto dealer in Kentucky. He just set out to provide people reliable vehicles and great customer service. And for the last 50 years, that's what we've done.
The 77-78 Kentucky team was truly the most unselfish group of guys I ever played with. It really didn't matter to us who scored the points on any particular night. We were just interested in doing whatever it took to get the victory. During the regular season, we posted big wins at Kansas, at Freedom Hall over number 4 Notre Dame, and tough road wins at Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and at Mississippi State. With a stellar 25-2 regular season mark, this Kentucky squad headed into NCAA postseason play ranked number 1 in the country. Yeah, we played Florida State first round, and we got behind. And so at halftime, we weren't playing very well. Now, Florida State was a good team. They were very quick and got up and down the floor real fast. So we got behind, and Coach Hall was not real happy, as you might expect. And so he sat down 3 of the starters. And but it was just kind of a shock treatment, the fact that for the 3 that didn't start, if you're not going to play, you can sit over here with me, is kind of what he was saying. But you look at that move that Coach Hall made, by taking out 3 starters to start the second half. If that doesn't go right and we lose that game, his job may have been on the line. So it was a gutsy move and gutsy call on his part, and fortunately for us, it worked out.
We went on to beat Florida State 85-76. Then, Mike Phillips scored 24 and Truman Claytor tossed in 13 as we took care of business in a 91-69 win over Miami of Ohio in the second round matchup. Next up was number 4 ranked Michigan State with a trip to the Final Four on the line.
Michigan State in that final game of the region, they played a matchup zone, and it was a real good matchup zone, and it gave us problems for the first half. The way I remember it, we came out to warm up for the second half, and Coach Hamilton had talked to Coach Hall about what to do on offense against the matchup zone. Basically, they said, okay, Rick, we're going to swing the ball. You come up, set a high pick. Kyle, come off the pick. And when you do that, Mike will be in the low post as one option. Jack will be running to the corner, the other option. Or you may have a shot there, or Rick will be, the kickback. And so I got into that gap by coming off that pick against the zone. And it just worked.
The Michigan State game went down to the wire. We turned in a great defensive effort against Magic Johnson, holding the future college and pro Hall of Famer to only 6 points on the night. With a thrilling 52-49 win over Michigan State, we were on our way to St. Louis in the Final Four.
When we got to St. Louis, those seniors that we had, Rick, Mike, James, and Jack, they had been at the Final Four as freshmen in San Diego. And at that time, they did a lot of sightseeing and the zoo and all those different things. Well, this time it was completely different. We weren't there to sightsee and see the arch or whatever the case may be. We were there to play basketball. And Arkansas was a real good team. It probably was our toughest game of the tournament.
The Arkansas game was a battle from beginning to end. We led most of the game, but those Razorbacks just kept coming at us. The game came down to the final minute. Clinging to a 2-point lead, we had the ball out of bounds on the Arkansas baseline.
And we had an out-of-bounds play that we called Rick. And basically, Rick would come over to set a pick for Jack. This is against their full-court pressure. And Jack would act like he was coming off the pick, but he'd slip it and just take off down court, and we'd bring our big guys up towards me so everybody was coming forward, and then we'd throw it over the top. And my baseball days kicked in, so I was able to throw it, like a touchdown pass to Jack. He caught it and laid it in. I think that put us up by 4 maybe with very little time, and that was kind of what sealed the game, Jack's run out.
The Arkansas game ended with us on top 64-59. The win set up the championship game matchup with the number 5 ranked Duke Blue Devils. Duke's game plan was to zone us, take away our inside game, and keep pressure on our outside shooters. Their strategy left the middle of the defense wide open.
We made the adjustment when Jack got the hot hand. When he banked the one in from the corner off the side, you kind of knew this was his night. And so we just basically stopped running our set offenses and just kind of started looking for Jack wherever he was and tried to ride that as long as he could, and he never cooled down. Jack Givens scored 41, and Rick Roby had 20 points and 11 rebounds. The 94-88 victory over Duke gave the Kentucky program our 5th NCAA national title.
It was a dream come true. The first thing that happened after the game, I shook hands with Jim Spernarkel. I remember that. But then I immediately looked up to the crowd to find my parents. So, I didn't ever get a piece of the net. Got caught in the crowd and could never get down there to cut a piece of the net. But just knowing everything that I'd gone through or they'd gone through, it was pretty cool to win.
Coach Hall made the decision to fly back to Lexington after the game that night. The reception we received from the Big Blue Nation at the Bluegrass Airport is one of the most memorable experiences of my life.
We finally got back. Now it's 2 a.m, and the airport is crazy. I mean, there's people wall to wall, and they tore up the x-ray machines and all kind of, the fans did. But they'd been there since probably 11 o'clock, and cars parked all the way, the entrance to the airport all along Versailles Road. They'd bring us in from the walkway off the airplane, and one by one they'd send us down the stairs and into this room. Well, every time a player came down, the entire crowd would just push, so you're like almost pinned up against the wall, and then you'd get in the room and the crowd would go back. Here comes the next player, and it would push. So, but it was just the craziest thing, and I don't know if they were burning couches back then, but town, even at 2 a.m, was just wild.
The coal industry's had a big impact on my life. My grandfather was a coal miner, my father was a coal miner. Coal is the largest driving force in our local economy. That's why I'm a friend of coal.
Double Dogs is a great place to eat. In a single word, delicious.
As you can imagine, nothing compares to the thrill of winning a national championship like we did in 1978. However, in moving on, we did have some exciting moments during my junior and senior seasons at Kentucky. There was the Kansas comeback, with Kentucky down 6 and less than 30 seconds on the clock. A heroic effort led by freshman flash Dwight Anderson resulted in one of UK's most improbable comeback victories of all time in Rupp Arena. We secured big wins over top-ranked Indiana and top-5 rated Notre Dame. We beat nationally ranked Kansas by 1, this time at Kansas. I also experienced what it was like to play for legendary coach Bob Knight while participating in the Pan American Games in Puerto Rico during the summer of 1979. Then in my last game as a Wildcat, we lost a 55-54 heartbreaker to Duke in the semifinals of the Mideast Regional.
Even though, like I said, we were 24-6, that was just a strange year. And I was a senior, and as a senior, you want to go out on top. And you kind of feel like you've been through the battles and things could kind of be turned over to you or whatever. But I don't know, it was just a weird year trying to figure out pieces of the puzzle, all these new freshmen coming in that were very talented, and where I fit in, where they fit in, and how we were going to play. And I don't know, it was a disappointing finale to the senior year.
I was actually drafted by the Phoenix Suns after my junior year. The boycott implemented by Jimmy Carter altered my plans for the 1980 Olympics, so after my senior year at Kentucky, I went ahead and signed a contract with the Suns.
I played in Phoenix for 5 years with the Suns, had a great time out there. Weather was beautiful. My first year, I didn't start. We had Walter Davis and Dennis Johnson at the guard spots, and so I was reserved, played every game, and that's probably the year we should have made the NBA Finals.
The summer after I graduated from UK, I started the Kyle Macy basketball camp with Nolan Barger of Tates Creek High School here in Lexington. It was fantastic. I continued to hold camp during every off-season and had a successful run for 27 years. I moved on from Phoenix in 1985 and landed in Chicago to play for the Bulls.
Michael Jordan that was his second year in the league. Unfortunately, he hurt his ankle and only played 15 games in the tournament. And we played the Boston Celtics first round, and I think it was at their place, the old Boston Garden. And I jokingly tell everybody, we combined for 70 points. So Michael had 63 and I had 7.
After Chicago, I played 1 year with the Indiana Pacers before heading overseas to play professionally in Italy from 1987 to 1990.
So I wanted to play more, and I had an opportunity to go over to Italy and played 3 years over in Italy and had a great time, and finished. So I got 10 years professionally.
I returned to Lexington after playing in Italy for 3 seasons. I worked at Central Bank and spent time as the color analyst on the UK radio network broadcast before taking the head coaching job at Morehead State University.
So the president hired me, and I got to spend 9 great years there. I loved the opportunity I had at Morehead, and the people in town were outstanding, very supportive, and they realized that we were trying to get this thing going like it was maybe back in the days of Wayne Martin and build that program.
When I look back, I realize how fortunate I've been to have great mentors in my life. The 3 most influential people in my life as far as basketball have been my father, Coach Hall, and Coach John McLeod at Phoenix. My father taught me the fundamentals of basketball and how to play the game. Those lessons led me to success on all levels. From Coach Hall, I learned discipline and how hard you have to work if you want to achieve your goals both on or off the court. And John McLeod taught me how to be a professional and how to treat basketball as a job, because pro ball is a business. I've always felt that I could never sit down and write a better script for my career. Born in a small town in Indiana, in high school, I was able to play for my father, who's always been my hero. I transferred to a college program where I played an integral part of an NCAA national championship team and played in front of the greatest college fans in the country. I've enjoyed a wonderful career in basketball with some awards and recognitions, and yet my memories at the University of Kentucky are most special to me. And to have my jersey retired and hanging in Rupp Arena is something I could have never dreamed of accomplishing.
It's a great honor to have your names in the Rafters of Rupp, because you not just look at your jersey when you see it up there, but you look down the row both ways and on the other side, and you see some of the names that are up there, and knowing the history of Kentucky basketball. It's just such an honor to know that you're up there hanging with those guys. But that's one of the reasons that I started the TV show From the Rafters of Rupp, because I wanted fans to know firsthand of a lot of the stories and what made Kentucky basketball tradition, and to hear it from the people that actually lived it.
10 seconds to go. Moves it down the left side. He reverses, comes back out to Macy. Macy looks at the clock. Moves left. 22-footer. Got it! 1 second. And there's the ball game. And Kyle Macy, who missed a free throw but has won so many, many times at Kentucky, the All-American, hits the one that counted. And Kentucky in overtime has won.
Thank you, Big Blue Nation, for your constant and loyal support. It truly has been an honor. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us for another full season of From the Rafters of Rupp.
From the Rafters of Rupp was brought to you by Bud's Gun Shop, Don Franklin's Auto Mall, Double Dogs, Friends of Coal, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Kentucky Farm Bureau, and by Rafferty's.